The Make Slide Pivot tool here on the constraints section of the panel allows you to create a simple little by constraint that gives you an offsetable rotation point for an item. Since it's a specific and specialized structure, it cares not what settings you have here, so all of that is ignored. All you do is simply select the item that you want to have a slide pivot for and click Make Slide Pivot. You'll get this little slide pivot object be created. You can of course take your item and move it around as you ordinarily would, and any offset between it and the slide pivot item will of course cause it to rotate from that point. You can also of course move the slide pivot itself. It's not just like a simple parent, which of course is how it ordinarily appears if you're moving the item itself. You can move the slide pivot somewhere in space and rotate it from that point in space like this. Do notice that when it is rotated such, any further movement you place on the slide pivot will of course cause the object to slip around, since what you're effectively getting when you move it is a rotation to the same amount from this new point in space. You are, however, of course free to move the main item itself without any such change whilst rotating it again from the slide pivot point here. As such, it's not quite an animatable pivot solution, insomuch as once you have rotated it, you can't then move it to a different position without the object shifting. And it's generally used to allow you to throw in an added little piece of control. A good example is something like this, a car rig, where of course you can drive your car around just via its main route there. But if you're wanting to create little fishtails and tail slides, you can use a slide pivot on the system to be able to throw that in as the car is turning corners and so on. It can, however, also come in useful on other rigs where you want to be able to change directions of things. And this is because slide pivots can be stacked, which does allow you to get around the fact that you can't move it after rotating it, or whilst it has rotation other than 0, 0, 0 upon it. For instance, here we have the good old T-Rex walking along in pretty much a straight line here, and let's presume that we want to turn him as he's walking. What we can do is come to an item that is a parent of the entire rig. In this case I'm going to use the global route, and I will make slide pivot. Our little slide pivot item has appeared there, and then at some point when he's stepping, let's say, onto this leading right foot there, we're going to start turning him. So at this frame I grab my slide pivot, I position it at the foot position there, keying it of course in place so it holds its zeroed rotation, and as he begins to take his step like this, coming over just before the other foot lands, we put a bit of rotation onto it like this. What this does is you can see that it's beginning to turn our walk and push it off in a new direction. Of course, I want to keep doing this and keep turning him as he moves, so with this first slide pivot still selected, I just click Make Slide Pivot again, which creates a new pivot for the existing one. I can now just wait till he starts to set his weight down onto that foot. We'll get it in position under this left foot now. Again, key off its rotation, and as he moves across to there, we rotate it some again, like this. So we're now getting a couple of little rotations applied there. I want to keep this going. I've got the second slide pivot selected. Once again, make slide pivot on it again, which creates a new slide pivot. Push that out back to the right foot again this time. As he comes across there, we can turn him just like this. And you see that at each turn, we've got an individual slide pivot doing its thing, and that allows us to redraw the character motion. Thus, if you are wanting to repeatably animate rotations from different positions, you can just stack slide pivot controls one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And that is the Make Slide Pivot tool.